John McCabe. Welcome to the show.
Hey, welcome to the John A. McCabe Show, where it's all about accelerating your authority in your business or field of expertise. And we do that by helping entrepreneurs, business owners, authors, experts, and speakers get seen, get heard, get noticed on any device, anywhere, anytime, in as little as 15 hours worth of work, also known as the Authority Acceleration Blueprint. Now, today is Real Estate Investing Monday, and I have a great lesson lined up for you today. With all the job losses over the past 1 to 2 years and the tightening up of the lending rules for home buyers, it's put a lot of homeowners in a situation that they're not familiar with. Now, this episode is specifically for you if you answer yes to any of the following questions. Now, are you a homeowner looking to sell your home? Are you looking to maximize the amount of money you make from the sale of your home? Are you facing a mortgage payout penalty to sell your home today? Do you have very little equity and face losing what you do have if you do sell your home today? Has your home been on the market for quite some time and just not selling? And do you need to sell your home but can't afford to spruce it up or do the renos required? Now, what if there was a way you could make an extra $20,000, $40,000, even $60,000 more from the sale of your home without having to worry about any of those issues? Would you be interested in finding out more? Now, today I'm going to talk about a program that has helped homeowners just like you make up to an extra $60,000 or more using this strategy versus turning your home into a traditional rental or selling their home the traditional way. Now, you also learn the 5 reasons you should use this solution, as well as some of the real-life examples of people just like you and the success that they've seen. I'm also going to give you access to a free video that walks you through the 4 options you have available to you right now and real-life example of a home analysis. Plus, as an added bonus, I'm going to give you free access to the PDF copy of my Amazon #1 best-selling book just for watching the show today. Now, homeowners just like you are contacting me every single day about the solution for their home because they find themselves in one of the following situations. Now, they're locked into a mortgage and they just can't sell their home today without the bank taking a huge chunk of their money. They have very little equity in their home, and a traditional sale, they would end up losing everything that they've ever put into the home. They don't want to pay the high real estate commissions that usually are associated with real estate agents. Now, they've had their home on the market for quite some time and they're just not getting any offers. Or they treat their home like an investment and just want to maximize the amount of money they make from the sale of their home. Now, in today's show, I'll discuss a solution that solves all those problems you maybe face, plus puts an extra $60,000 in your pocket when it's all said and done. Now, what would an extra $60,000 mean to you and your family? So stick around, because when I come back, I'm going to share with you an amazing strategy that I've been using to help homeowners and investors just like you since 2009. Hey, thanks for joining me today. Now, if you're a homeowner, full or part-time real estate investor, a brand new or a veteran, then today's show is for you. Now, a revolution has begun in the housing market, and it's going to make some people a great deal of money. And because you've taken the first step by joining me on today's show, I'm going to show you how you can take advantage of this trend that's making some homeowners just like you an extra $20,000, $40,000, or even $60,000 more than if they just sold their home today the traditional way. Now, do you know that over the past several years, there's been a dramatic increase in the demand of people needing to rent their house for 2 to 3 years before they can buy it? And with the recent mortgage rule changes in Canada, that has increased even more, along with job losses in much of the country that's forcing homeowners to sell their home in a market with very few buyers available. And this demand is steadily increasing for a number of reasons, such as the banks are making it harder for good people to qualify for a mortgage. Vacancy rates are declining in some areas while increasing in others. There's a steady increase of immigration and migration right across the country. Now, all of these things together has created what I call the perfect storm for people just like you to rent out your house for 2 to 3 years and then sell it to the renter at the end of the term. So what does this mean for you? Well, you may not realize it, but you have the unique ability to make bucket loads of money. Okay, well, maybe not bucket loads, but maybe an extra $20,000, $40,000, or even $60,000 or more than you would make on a traditional sale today, or even if you turned it into a rental property for 2 to 3 years and then sold it. Now, I'm sure you've heard from several sources when you bought your home that it was probably the biggest investment that you'll ever make in your life. So if that's the case, why not maximize your return on your investment? So today's show is all about opening your eyes to another option you probably never knew really existed when it comes to selling your home. Now, I'm a firm believer that you should have all the information available to you before you make an informed decision. And if you're just joining us and you don't know who I am, I'm John McCabe, a two-time #1 international best-selling author, founder of I Offer Solutions Real Estate Services, co-founder of Canada's only nationwide rent-to-own company, and creator of the Rent-to-Own Revolution program. Now, when done right, rent-to-own is a more profitable alternative when selling your home, while at the same time helping a great family get into home ownership. And as a result, I've developed a system that has taken years of best practices and experiences and assembled them into a step-by-step process and system that anyone can clearly understand, follow, and use. And today I'm going to be sharing with you 5 reasons why you'd want to get into this solution. Now, the first reason is to use this solution is you can actually get access to your equity now while your home makes you money over the course of the term. So let's face it, 98% of homeowners sell because they need the money from the sale of their home today. But what happens if your home just isn't selling, and you can't sell your home today, but you've already purchased another home? Now, for most, they need the money to buy the next home. For others, they needed to pay off bills, spend it on things they probably don't need, or put it in the bank. Now, since the banks are constantly changing the refinancing rules and making it harder for you to get your money out of the home, it has forced homeowners to get a little bit more creative to access what is rightfully theirs, which is the equity in their home. Now, many creative homeowners are using this system to gain access to their equity while they continue to hold on to the home while it makes them more money. Now, people like, for example, one of my clients, Liz. Now, she received a $15,000 non-refundable lump sum payment from the individual moving into her home before they actually moved in the home. Now, that worked out to be 5% of the purchase price for the person moving into the home, and about 1/3 of Liz's equity that she actually had in the property. Now, when I meet and work with homeowners, plus in my online training program, I walk you through how to determine the minimum amount you should accept as an initial option payment, or you may call it a down payment, that you would accept before putting anyone in your home. Now, Liz, for example, realizes that the $15,000 doesn't cover the $50,000 of total equity she has in the property, but at least it's a start. Now, for Liz, the next step was using a more advanced strategy, and one that I work with homeowners on specifically because it is more advanced. So typically it's only for experienced investors like myself and lawyers that actually make it happen. Is to actually use somebody's RRSPs who aren't happy with the returns they're getting, which is basically everybody nowadays. So for Liz to get access to the remaining equity that she has in the home, remember she started with $50,000, they came in with $15,000 of a down payment that left $35,000 of equity, and she wanted to get all $50,000 equity out of her home. So she put it in this program with this particular strategy versus just selling it today. So she got the $15,000 up front, and the other $35,000 she's going to use another person's RRSP and secure it against the home in a form of a mortgage. Now, the RRSPs aren't withdrawn from the person's account at all. They're just turned into a self-directed RRSP through Olympia Trust and turned into a traditional mortgage through with the use of a lawyer, just like the bank, and they put it on the property just like the banks do. Now, the beautiful part of this strategy is she doesn't even have to qualify or deal with the banks at all. So this is a very advanced strategy, but the #1 reason to use this is you actually, using this solution, you do have options to get access to your equity today. The first one is in the form of a down payment, and the second one is in a more advanced strategy for getting more equity, and that's using somebody else's RRSPs in Canada and somebody's 401ks in the US, and getting them registered as a mortgage on your property. So all Liz needs to do is to find someone that she knows that isn't directly related to her, that wants to make it, say, a guaranteed 6, 8, or 10% return on their RRSPs or their 401ks over the next couple of years. Now, I'm quite sure if you talk to anyone that has RRSPs or 401ks, they aren't making anywhere near 6, 8, or 10%. So to find somebody that is interested in making that guaranteed, that's secured by something real, tangible, real estate versus being in the stocks or being in the mutual funds, which is really just paper trading, that you'll actually be able to find people who are interested in making those types of returns. So it's really not too hard with the majority of the people that are holding RSPs or 401ks today. That definitely are looking to make more money on their return of their retirement investment. So as mentioned, this is a very advanced strategy and one that's actually very easy when it's understood. But the problem is most people aren't open to understanding it and just do what the banks tell them to do. But one thing you must realize is the banks do what's in the best interest of the banks, not in what's your best interest. It's what's in the best interest of the banks. Now, the beauty of this system is that you can get some equity out of your property now from the initial down payment, as I mentioned. And if you want to get more advanced, you can pull out more equity by filing someone with an RSP or a 401k if you're in the U.S. and registering it as a mortgage against your property to pull out more equity. Okay. Now, Liz, so in Liz's situation, like I said, she was one of my previous clients. She got her equity out of the property right away. And not only that she's making $750 a month cash flow, as well as the profit from the sale of the home at the end. So selling your house using this system is far less difficult than a lot of people actually realize. So reason number 2 is you get to sell your home for top dollar and help another family in the process. Now, when homeowners sell their home, the traditional method, they put their home on the free market where people with the means to buy will make offers to buy the home for what they feel it is worth. Now, usually what the buyer thinks the home is worth and what the homeowner thinks the home is worth usually differ until negotiations bring them to a common price that they can agree upon, which is the traditional method in which people actually buy homes. Now, this is the risk homeowners take when they put their home on the free market. Now, it isn't the realtor or the banks or even the homeowner that determines the value of the home. It's actually the buyer, because a home is only worth what someone is willing to pay for it. Of course, that's really determined by the current market conditions, the competition that the home has with other homes in the market. What's the job situation, what's the economy like. There's a lot of other factoring conditions, but really when it boils down to, a home is only worth what someone's willing to actually give you for it. So generally, unless it's a seller's market, you aren't going to get 100% of your asking price. Now, it's more likely you'll get closer to 90 or 95% of your asking price, or somewhere in between there. But using this type of system, where the rent-to-own system, you are always getting 100% of the fair market value of your home, regardless of when it sells. So if it sells 2 to 3 years from now, you're getting 100% of the fair market value of your home 3 years from today. So not only that, but the tenant buyers are more than happy to pay for the opportunity to get into home ownership. So negotiations, for my business, negotiations never happen. So a homeowner or someone that wants to get into home ownership, that wants to get into my rent-to-own program, they never negotiate on the price. So we set the price. So typically when I work with homeowners, or when they go through my online course, we go through how to determine and calculate what the future price will be on the home 2 to 3 years down the road. So once you have figured that out, typically that is what the tenant buyer is going to pay for the property. And typically we do a pretty good job of determining what the future value of the home is going to be. Usually it's within range, but you're always going to sell it for 100% of the fair market value. Because what happens at the end of the term is the bank or the lender who's going to give the mortgage to the person that's buying the home is going to send their appraiser out. They're going to come up with a value. And that value that they come up with is what the home is worth in the bank's eyes. They will never appraise it for more than that. So typically, if the purchase price you have with the tenant buyer is that price, you're going to sell it for that price. If you estimated that the home is going to be worth more, then you bring it down to whatever the bank says the home is worth. Because at the end of the day, the bank's only going to finance what it feels the home is worth. Okay. So another example of a client that I had, her name was Bola. She had a very difficult time selling her home. Her home was worth $420,000, was the listing price here in Edmonton. This is several years ago. It sat on the market for a long time with no offers. I think close to a year. 9 months to a year it sat on the market with no offers. Now usually when it sits on the market for that long, there's a really good chance that the home is overpriced. And when I had done my research, I had figured out that, yeah, I thought it was, she was asking, too much for it. But that is what the realtor told her to set it at. But once you looked inside, it needed a little bit of cosmetic work. So most buyers, when they're going into take over or buy a home, they're looking for something that's move-in ready, unless they're an investor looking for fixer-ups. But typically they're looking for something that's move-in ready, so they don't want to do a lot of cosmetic repairs. So let's say if Bola, for example, had received an offer, it's not going to be anywhere near the full price. She never even received an offer, but if she had have received an offer, it probably would have been closer to the 90 to 95% range. So let's say she would have received an offer of and after negotiations, they agreed upon $399,000, which is $21,000 below her asking price, which is reasonable. It's 95%. So let's say for in scenario, someone made an offer and they agreed upon the number $399. Now then, of course, Bola would have had to pay realtor fees of $16,000 on that price, leaving her with a net of $383,000 on a home that she wanted $420,000 for. So you can see that there's a $37,000 difference there between what she would have got and what she wanted. Now that's a typical situation when people are putting their homes on the market. That's generally what happens. You list it for one price, somebody comes in, they offer you something, usually let's say around 90 to 95% is what you agree upon. Then you have to pay realtor fees. So the difference between what you listed it for and what you actually put in your pocket is quite a bit different. However, since Bola didn't even receive any offers, she decided to put her home in the program, and she was actually able to sell her home for the full $420,000 a couple years in the future. So she was able to do that without having to negotiate on the price with the people that are going to buy the property. So there was no price negotiations. She did that without having to pay any realtor fees. So this saved her $37,000 alone. Now, what would you do, or what would your family do with an extra $37,000? I know what I'd do. I'd reinvest it in myself, but that's just me. Not to mention Bola, she made actually made an extra $30,000 just from the mortgage pay down over those 3 years. So by putting her home in this program, she actually netted, not gross, but netted $67,000 more from the sale of her home just by putting her home in the program, and working with a young couple who wanted to get into home ownership, just needed a little bit of time to fix the credit situation. So she was actually able to sell the home to them, and she pocketed $67,000 more than she would have pocketed if she sold her home when she initially wanted to sell her home. Now, real estate is one of the most forgiving investments for patient investors. History has shown that property values nearly always go up over time. Now, there may be ups and downs along the way, but in the long run, the price will always increase. Now, depending upon your local economy, the property values can climb substantially over a period, or or potentially substantially over a few years, or it may be a slow and steady climb. But generally, property values or property prices will usually double every 10 to 15 years. Now, it's very likely that your home will be worth more in 3 years than it is today. But here's the thing. Even if it hasn't gone up in value, you'll still reap the benefits of mortgage pay down and monthly cash flow, which are truly the only two ways to make money in real estate. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, what about appreciation? Well, actually, appreciation is really just inflation, which means that you've protected your money by having it invested in the property. You're protecting its purchasing power against the inflation. Now, additionally, any work you or the renters put into the property during the rental period will go toward improving the home's value as well before its sale. So that's reason number 2. You're always going to get top dollar for your home when you sell it. So reason number 3 is to have someone else pay down your mortgage so you can reap the rewards when it sells. Now, when it comes to real estate investing, this is where the real money is made. So guys like Donald Trump and Robert Kiyosaki own vast real estate empires where other people pay down the mortgage. Having others pay down their mortgage becomes a huge asset to them when it comes to refinancing the property or to sell it, such as in your case as a homeowner. Now, as homeowners pay their mortgage, a portion goes towards the principal and a portion goes towards the paying down the interest. The larger part goes to the interest because you see the banks are smart. They want to get their money as quickly as they can, which is why such a large percentage of the payment is interest at the very beginning, because they want to get their money as fast as possible. So there really isn't anything the homeowners can do or change the way the banks structure mortgages, but what they can do is have someone else pay down the mortgage, so when it comes time to sell that you can recover the pay down on that equity. Now, the longer you can have somebody in your home paying down the mortgage, the more money you'll make at the end when it's actually sold. So for example, we talked in this video that you can see that the mortgage pay down is one area where a great deal of money is made. Now, the longer you have someone paying that mortgage, the more money you'll make when the house sells. But one question that comes up a lot of time is, well, why don't I just turn it into a traditional rental and benefit from holding it longer? Now, the answer lies in all the other 4 reasons to use this strategy. So remember, there's 5 reasons why you want to use this strategy. The other 4 reasons will actually answer that question as to why you don't want to turn it into a traditional rental. Because they don't actually apply when you just turn your home into a traditional rental. Those other 4 reasons, they don't apply to your benefit. So for example, I had a client, his first name was Chang, and he was scheduled to make $18,000 more just from the mortgage paydown over 3 years. As I mentioned, bullish, he made $30,000 more. And I had another client, his name was Eric. We just did a 1-year, we found some clients and we did a 1-year deal on his house, and structuring it for 1 year, he put an extra $9,000 in his pocket just in 1 year, just by having somebody else pay down his mortgage. So typically 95% of tenant buyers, those are the people who want to buy your home, that get into these arrangements require 3 years, between 2 to 3 years, to turn their situation around. And a lot of the people that I deal with, typically they're self-employed individuals. They own a corporation. A lot of times they make great money. They just haven't learned, they just don't pay themselves in a way that the bank wants to see them get paid in order to get a mortgage. A lot of people that own corporations, small businesses, people that own corporations, a lot of times they'll pay themselves by dividends versus paying themselves a salary. They do that for tax savings purposes. However, the bank, when the bank looks at your tax assessments and your and looking for T4s, when you claim dividends, they actually, on your tax assessment, don't quote me on this, I'm not a tax accountant or a mortgage broker, but when you claim dividends, I believe they appear on somewhere in box 180 something. But when a mortgage broker, traditionally, when a mortgage broker is looking for you to determine how much you can qualify for a mortgage, they're looking at what appears on line 150 of your tax assessment. So line 150 shows your salary plus any, I believe, taxable benefits you would receive from working. So if you own a corporation and you pay yourself dividends, and those dividends appear on box 180 something or line 180 something, and you have next to nothing on box 150 because you don't pay yourself a salary, the lenders or the mortgage broker or the bank is going to look at you and say, well, you don't make any money. Even though you could have dividended yourself $200,000, they look at you and say, well, you don't have an income, which It's crazy that they operate that way, but they do. So a lot of times I'm working with those types of people, and we just teach them to pay themselves a salary for 2 to 3 years. A lot of times people that make great money had some challenges in the past, and some of those challenges could be the smallest thing, like getting mad at their cell phone provider over a bill and refusing to pay that bill, going with a new cell phone provider. So they have this outstanding bill of $100 for some cell phone provider, but they registered against your credit bureau, and that $100 bill is preventing somebody from buying, a $500,000 home. Even though the person makes great money and can afford to buy that property, that one bill is preventing them from buying that house. So it will actually take, paying that bill, and a lot of times, maybe 2 years to get your credit ranking and your credit score up to a point where the mortgage broker can get you qualified for a traditional mortgage. So during that time, they come into the program and they find a home that they want to buy, but they can't get a mortgage, so they enter into a rent-to-own, and within the 2 to 3 years, they end up purchasing the home through the traditional mortgage. By that time, they've had time to fix their credit. They come in with a down payment. Typically, they're making extra payments towards the future purchase of the property. So when it's all said and done, at the end of the term, you're providing the bank with documentation showing that they paid the down payment, that they've paid faithfully over the 2 to 3 years, and the person then qualifies for a traditional mortgage, and that's when your house gets sold. So most 95% of those people typically need 2 to 3 years, but there are some that require a little bit longer terms, maybe 5 to 7 years. It really depends on everybody's situation. So with this system that I put together, we put those individuals through a very stringent screening process using mortgage brokers and credit coaches, so you know exactly how many years of mortgage pay down that you're going to benefit from with that tenant buyer. Now, I've learned a lot of this from mistakes that I've made early on doing this business. Now I have a very specific process that is really second to none when it comes to qualifying these people and putting them in homes. And that same process I share with all the homeowners I work with and investors, as well as made it available in the online training program or when I work with homeowners directly, as I mentioned. So that process I've made available to everybody. Whether you're going through my online training program or I'm working with you directly, we use the exact same process for qualifying these individuals to ensure we're putting the right people in the right properties. Okay, so that's number 3 is having somebody else pay down your mortgage, and that is one of the biggest benefits when it comes to real estate investing or owning property, is having somebody else pay down your mortgage so that you get to recapture that equity when you sell the property at the end. So reason number 4 is that you get to control your costs by having the tenant buyer pay for all the repairs and maintenance, and you get to eliminate the realtor. So reason number 4 is you get to control your costs. Now, as homeowners venture into the landlord arena, they usually don't take into account the amount of expenses that they're going to be faced with. Now, it isn't just the expenses that come along with owning a home, like your mortgage, your taxes, your insurance. But when you throw in that human element, such as a tenant, you never know what you're going to end up paying for. Or getting those late night calls when the toilet is overflowing, or midnight moves, or damages to the property, or vacancies, non-payment of rent, and the endless excuses homeowners face when turning their home into a traditional rental. Now, it's for these reasons homeowners shy away from being landlords. Now, for my client that I talked about previously, Liz, that's one of the exact reasons why she didn't want to turn this home into a traditional rental. She had rentals. She didn't want to have to deal with all the problems that she's been faced with in the past. Those problems included like all the stuff that I talked about before. Liz realized that she did not want just a tenant. She wanted someone who had a vested interest in living in the home, someone who was going to be responsible for the care and the upkeep of the home, because they were eventually going to own the home. Now, for the reasons Liz decided to put her home in the system, for those reasons, that's why she decided to put her home in the system and have the tenant buyer responsible for all the repairs and maintenance up to $1,500 per instance. So that would include everything in the home unless the furnace was to go, since the house had been completely renovated just prior to this person moving in. So the entire house had been renovated, and it even had a brand new furnace. So since it was a brand new furnace installed, everything was brand new. It's very unlikely that she's going to have to spend a single cent on the property for the next 2 years, because the tenant buyer is responsible for paying for all the repairs and maintenance for under $1,500 per instance. So if the fridge goes, the tenant buyer has to buy a new one. If the dishwasher goes, they have to buy a new one. If the furnace breaks down, they have to get it fixed. If the toilet gets plugged, they have to get it fixed at their own expense. And this is the reason why a lot of homeowners put their homes in these programs, because they pass on all of the maintenance costs and the repairs and maintenance to the tenant buyer. So typically when I'm working with a homeowner or in person, or they go through the online course, we get into more detail about the levels. Up to you for whatever you set it, but it also needs to be somewhat reasonable. So when I'm working with a homeowner, and let's say they have all high-end appliances, appliances that run, $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 to replace them. So what I'll do is I'll typically set the limit at, say, $2,500, because I want all of the appliances to be covered under the repairs and maintenance is typically what I look at. So whatever the replacement cost of the appliances, that is typically where I'm going to set the limit for the repairs and maintenance costs in the option arrangement. So if it's all low-end appliances, the replacement cost is all under $1,000, then typically I'm going to have it set at $1,000. So generally, it's like I said, it's up to you, the homeowner, but it needs to be reasonable, and you need to be able to sort of back up, why you picked that number. Now, similarly for my client, one of my clients in the past, Chang, he was using this system. He was able to have his property renovated at the tenant's expense prior to them moving in the property. So the way it was with Chang's property, it was dated. So, the kitchen was somewhat dated, the countertops, the flooring in the living room, and the painting color scheme was just all dated. So the way it worked is we had the tenant buyer, come in, and they were responsible they wanted it repainted, change some flooring, change the countertops. So they were responsible for doing that. And because we put the onus on them to make sure it was done, Chang was able to structure this in lieu of taking sort of a larger down payment. But what's important to note is we did not let the tenants move into the property until the renovations were completed, and qualified contractors had to be used, not do-it-yourselfers, because if you're going to let somebody do some repairs and maintenance on your property, typically you're going to want qualified individuals doing it, not your do-it-yourselfers, because who knows what the properties, even with qualified contractors, who knows what you're going to end up with, because half of them do it wrong as well. But at least it looks better, even though it's done wrong. But just ensuring that the tenant buyers have to have it done by qualified individuals, and it has to be 100% complete prior to them moving in, because you never want to let them move in and say they're going to do it while they're in there, because it's never going to happen. 3 years will go by, and that counter is never going to get changed, or that flooring is never going to get done. It's happened too many times. And there's a reason why I created this process, because I've gone through all these problems, and my coach and mentor, one of my business partners, he's gone through this as well, and he has 30 years of experience. So there's a reason why we put these things in place. Whether I'm working with a homeowner directly or an investor directly, or they're going through my online training program to set this up for themselves, I'm very adamant about that you want to make sure that you don't let the people in the property, if they're going to do repair, if they're going to do some upgrades in exchange for a down payment, that it actually needs to be done prior to them moving in and getting keys to the property. Okay, so having the tenant buyers get the property renovated, there's a better chance that they're going to care for the property and the home and purchase it at the end of the term, because they're putting their own time, their own money, their own effort into getting it the way that they like to have it. So for Chang, for example, he also made the tenant buyers responsible for $1,000 of repairs and maintenance per instance. Now, another major expense, because we're talking about the reason, one of the reasons why people would use this solution is they're trying to lower their expenses. And one of the biggest expenses to selling a house is when you're using a realtor. So typically you're going to pay 7% of the first $100,000 and 3% of the rest of the purchase price. There are some numerous discount brokerages popping up along with the do-it-yourself systems. In Canada, there's ComFree and Property Guys. There's like the do-it-yourselfers for sale by homeowners. Although the do-it-yourself systems are usually upwards of between $500 and $1,000 price point if you're going to go with the best package. Now, there's still a lot of work to be done on the homeowner's part, and it can still take time to sell the home. Now, the homeowners can be sitting on the property for months before they even get an offer. Now, with some of those packages as well, those do-it-yourself packages, it enables you to put your home on the MLS system and list it on the MLS system. However, by entering into the agreement with the those do-it-yourself programs where you put it on the MLS system, if you're being contacted, if a buyer's, it's in the agreements, I believe, that if a buyer comes to you with a realtor, that you're obligated to pay the buyer's realtor his commission. Even though you don't have a selling realtor, you're obligated to pay the buyer's realtor the commission. So by putting your home in those do-it-yourself higher-end packages that put it on MLS, what you've in essence done is just shaved half of the commission. So instead of paying the 7% for the first 100,000 and 3% for the rest, since you're representing yourself as this seller, you just have to pay the buyer's realtor of 3.5% of the first 100,000 and 1.5% of the remaining. So you're just cutting your commissions in half. So for example, as I mentioned, one of my clients, Chang, for him to sell it at that point in time would have cost him around $9,000 in realtor fees. Now he had purchased the property, and within 2 years of purchasing the property had not gone up in value, in price, because it was during a time when the economy was quite flat. It was a dated property, so I think he bought it sort of top of the market at that time. I don't think he negotiated much on the price. It was a lower end property, let's say $160,000 price point, townhouse condo. So he only put 5% down. So that would be, let's say, $9,000 that he put down. Now, if he were to sell that home, he'd be lucky to sell it for what he paid for it. And that $9,000 he would have had to pay the realtor. So his 100% of his equity would have got eaten up through the sale of the home. So combine that with the payout penalty that he would have been charged because he only had the mortgage for 2 out of 5 years. It would have actually cost Chang money out of his own pocket to sell his home. So by putting his home in the system, he was able to wait the 3 years before selling, gaining more equity from the mortgage pay down. And he would have been able to sell the home to the tenant buyers at a higher price because the market was going up slightly. And he would have been able to do that without the use of a realtor. So basically, he had a built-in buyer selling the home at the end. It was just a matter of the lawyer process, the paperwork, and which would need to happen. Even if you're using a realtor, you still need to have a lawyer. So unfortunately, the buyer didn't end up buying. So, but that was to Chang's advantage anyway, because he had somebody in the property that had fixed it up at their own expense, and they had paid down his mortgage for 3 years. So even though they could not buy, for him to actually put it on the market, he would be able to list it on the market at a much higher price because it was renovated. And he could even sell it using a realtor because the price of the property had gone up and his mortgage had gone down because of the equity from the person making the mortgage payments. So even if he sold it after the fact when the people didn't buy it, if he sold it on the open market, he would still walk away with a lot more money from the mortgage pay down and from not having to pay out the bank the penalty for paying out early. So he would have definitely made a lot more money. So controlling not only the rental expenses, but also the selling expenses is crucial for the homeowner to be able to make and keep as much money from the sale of their home as possible. So having a system that puts the onus on the repairs and the costs on the tenant buyer, as well as having a built-in buyer living in the home, does just that. So you're eliminating your rental expenses and you're eliminating your realtor expenses by having the person in the home and having an agreement where they're going to rent it and then they have the option to purchase it in the future. So you're eliminating the majority of the expenses you would have, both rental and selling expenses. So to discover how much you would actually save in expenses, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post a link where at the end of the show, I'll post a link where you can access a video where I walk you through a specific example of analyzing someone's home for 4 different options. So you can actually go through that and to get a good idea the types of expenses that most homeowners don't think about and how the rental expenses and the selling expenses really impact your bottom line. So just go. So I'll put a link to a video where you can actually walk through that to get the information to see how it actually works for yourself. And if there's anything, if you want more information after that, then just connect with me through that website. Reason number 5, one of the biggest reasons is cash flow is king. So you have somebody in the home while you make money each and every month. Now, most homeowners are drawn to rent their home for the lure of the monthly cash flow. Now, what most of them don't realize until it's too late is that over-leveraged properties, bad tenants, unaccounted for vacancies and expenses can very easily turn their positive cash flow position into a deep, deep negative cash flow expense. Now, earlier I talked about controlling the expenses of renting the property, so vacancies, repairs, and maintenance are limited, and the costs are passed on to the tenant buyer. Now, doing this enables the homeowner to truly cash flow and cash in on a monthly basis. So for those of you who aren't aware, cash flow refers to the difference between the money that comes in each and every month less the actual and budget expenses for that property for that month. Now, most homeowners and investors only look at actual expenses and they fail to take into account all the expenses they need to budget for that could come up in a traditional rental, like vacancies, repairs, cleaning up when people move out, non-payment of rent, having to get a bailiff to get somebody out, going to court if that happens, and so much more. Trust me, I've been through a lot of these experiences, so I know what it's like to be having a traditional rental and what comes along with it. So, but however, when you apply this strategy, the rent-own revolution strategy to your home, the majority of those budgeted expenses are non-existent. As well, you generally make more money each and every month. So reason number 5 is we're talking about you get cash flow each and every month. Now, unlike a traditional rental where you just get fair market rent each and every month, and depending upon your location, economy, and other factors, that may not even be enough to cover your actual cost of the property on a monthly basis. However, by putting your home in the rent-own program, you can generally make an extra $100 to $500 per month over and above your fair market rent. So for example, let's say fair market rent for your home is $1,500. Then by using this strategy and putting your home in this program, you would actually be able to get a monthly income between $1,600 to $2,000. So instead of getting $1,500 a month, you can get anywhere from $1,600 to $2,000 a month. Now, depending upon your expenses, you can definitely see how you'd make a great deal more cash flow each and every month. Now, calculating exactly how much to charge for rent and the additional payment each and every month is something that I walk the homeowners through when we work together, or when they go through the online training course. They actually go through worksheets, and then you learn how to determine how much to charge for rent, plus how much additional charge to charge each and every month. So for example, I think I talked about this before, but one of my clients, Liz, not wanting to deal with the day-to-day issues of tenants, she chose to put her home in this system. And because of that, she actually gets to keep the $750 per month cash flow each and every month over the next 2 years. So the cash flow on her property each and every month was $750 per month. Remember, the tenant was responsible for all the repairs and maintenance up to $1,500 per instance. So Liz did not have to shell out any money each and every month to cover any issues with the property. The tenant was responsible for all those. So Liz was making, I believe the rent was, or the monthly payment from the tenant buyer combined was $2,000 a month. And Liz's actual expenses were $1,250 a month. So she was cash flowing $750 a month every single month over 2 years without having to deal with any issues with the property or the tenant themselves. So since the expenses were addressed in reason 4, homeowners are able to keep the cash flow that they make each and every month with fewer worries about needing to save it to cover the future inevitable expenses that come up with regular tenants. So they come up with the issue of regular tenants. Okay. So those are the 5 reasons why you'd want to lease your home out for 2 to 3 years and then sell it to the person that's in the home, otherwise known as a rent to own. So 5 reasons why you'd want to rent to own your home, and they include getting top dollar for your home, mortgage pay down, controlling the expenses or reducing the amount of expenses, both monthly expenses as well as selling expenses, getting access to your equity up front, and as well as making cash flow at the each and every month. So those are the 5 reasons why you'd want to turn your home into a rent own. So and that concludes the show for today. So that's all the time we have. I want to personally thank each and every one of you for joining me on today's show. And like I said, I'm going to post all the links that I talked about, the video, getting access to the video where I analyze some person's property, so you can see that process. I'll put in the link to get the free PDF of my Amazon #1 best-selling book, and I'll also put in information about the online video training course on how to turn your home into a rent-own, the do-it-yourself model. So thank you, everybody. Be sure to like, love, share this video with all your friends on your Facebook, as well as on any business pages. And I look forward to catching up with you guys again tomorrow for another amazing guest. Tomorrow I have an amazing guest coming on. So just stick around, because I'm going to be back in just 1 second for today's closing remarks. So again, thanks for joining me on today's show, and I look forward to seeing you on tomorrow's show. So I'll be back in just a second for closing remarks. Thank you for joining me on today's Johnny McCabe Show. Now, throughout this video, I talked about some real-life examples of homeowners just like you who, for a variety of reasons, put their home in the program and made more money with less work. Now, there were homeowners who were locked into a mortgage and couldn't sell without paying huge penalties to the bank to break their mortgage. There were homeowners who had very little equity in the home, and with a traditional sale would have ended up losing everything they had. Or there was also homeowners who didn't want to pay the high fees charged by real estate agents, and some had their home on the market for quite some time that weren't getting any offers. And others just treated their home like an investment and wanted to maximize the amount of money they made from the sale of the home. Now, even though they all had different reasons for putting their home in the program, they all received these 5 benefits. They received strategies to access some of the equity now. They sold their home for top dollar at the end. They received mortgage pay down throughout the term of the agreement. They reduced their renting and selling expenses. and potentially they had some monthly cash flow to show for it each and every month of the term. And the bottom line with each and every one of them, they made considerably more money selling their home using this program than they could have ever made selling it themselves or with a realtor or just renting it out for 3 years and then selling it on their own. Now, I don't know what situation you're in or what brought you to watch this video, but I can tell you that using the Rent-to-Own Revolution strategy or putting your home in the Rent-to-Own Revolution program will make you more money than any other method out there for selling your home. And to prove it, I'm going to send you a link to where you can watch a video where I analyze an average home for rent, for sale, the do-it-yourself rent-to-own, and a guaranteed service my company offers to many homeowners across the country. Now in the video, I'll walk you through how the program works, what options you have, how this program stacks up financially against selling your home today or renting it yourself for 3 years and then selling it. You can have one of our representatives go through the same process over the phone with you on your home if you wish. Now this is a no obligation, no pressure presentation on how the program can work for you. We will run through an example, then get into specific numbers on your home so you can see exactly how much money you'll make with this solution. Now not every home qualifies for our guaranteed service, but every home does qualify for the do-it-yourself program. And with the online video training course, you'll be able to structure your rent-to-own exactly the same way my company structures rent-to-owns right across the country. So for more information on the program, visit the links listed below in the comments section or the show notes section and check out the analysis video. Now if you're interested in more information about the online Rent-to-Own Revolution video training course, I've posted a link for that as well. Now I'll also post a link to where you can download a free PDF copy of my Amazon #1 best-selling book, The Rent-to-Own Revolution. So go ahead, click on the links, find out how you can benefit by using this strategy on your home, and I look forward to welcoming you into the revolution. So thanks for watching today's John A. McCabe Show. For more information about today's topic, please contact me through johnamccabe.com or contact me via the show's website page. Be sure to join us tomorrow for another great show and a great guest where I get into how you can accelerate your authority in your business or field of expertise. So until then, have yourself an amazing day.